A senior administration official says that President Biden made it clear to Israel that the U.S. will not participate in any Israeli offensive operations against Iran. Joining us now, someone who seems to take a different view of how to respond to Tehran, former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us. So what is your assessment of what's happening right now? You said earlier on CNN that this is a huge failure of both U.S. and Israeli deterrence.
Right. Last night, the Iranians launched 320 plus cruise and ballistic missiles and drones. It's a blessing that the Israelis find only 1% got through. But not every night is going to be that good. And unless Iran sees a powerful response, that risk will continue. And the way to reestablish deterrence is not proportional. That's academic talk. The way you establish deterrence is by telling your adversary, if you ever try that again, the price you will pay will be so much higher than any gain you think you can get. You shouldn't even think about it. So I think Israel has a wide range of potential targets. You start by flattening Iran's air defense capabilities. Next, you might go after headquarters of the regular military and the Revolutionary Guard. You could consider going after their oil infrastructure, the oil fields, the distribution pipelines, the export port facilities. And most importantly, I think Israel should be looking at this as an opportunity to destroy Iran's nuclear weapons program, which is the existential threat that Israel faces. I don't know what they'll do. I can't predict it, but I will tell you this. If Joe Biden, as some press reports have it, is urging the Israelis not to retaliate at all, he is an embarrassment to the United States. This is an American interest to make sure that Iran, which is the principal threat to international peace and security in the region, is at a minimum put in its place, to spare Israel, to spare the Gulf Arabs, to spare us from the threat that they pose.
So, look, I don't think there's anybody in the White House that if they could snap their fingers and have the Iranian regime disappear wouldn't do so. The question about what you're proposing would be that doesn't necessarily end the conflict. That might actually just escalate the conflict. And then you have Iran responding even more harshly and even more successfully. And who knows what their nuclear capabilities are right now. And how does one avoid that happening?
Well, let's start with what we don't know about their nuclear capabilities. Do you want to tell Israel to roll the dice that next time a salvo of ballistic missiles comes into their territory, it won't be nuclear? I think that's the point that Israel needs to focus on. And I would say this, too, about this escalation, this fear of a wider war. The administration fears a wider war because it's worried about gasoline prices in the United States. It's worried about the left wing of the Democratic Party. The fact is, Israel's been in a wider war since October the 7th, which the administration has resolutely refused to recognize. If you don't understand the strategic environment, you can't possibly respond to it effectively. This theater of operations has 5 battlefields at the moment. Certainly Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis closing the Red Sea to international sea traffic, the Hezbollah attacking northern Israel, Shia militia groups in Iraq and Syria. Now we see Iran itself. And even yesterday, they hijacked, I believe it was a Philippine ship on the high seas. So there are 5 sources of pressure here. It's not necessarily the world's most effective alliance, but it's one battle plan, which the Iranians call the Ring of Fire. And the administration needs to face up to that, which it has not done so far.
Nobody wants Armageddon, right? Nobody wants World War III. Nobody wants nuclear weapons used. Nobody wants more death of innocent people. Why are you convinced that your method is the best way to avoid that as opposed to diplomacy, deterrence, and other ways?
Well, how well is diplomacy working so far? Hamas this morning again rejected the ceasefire plan. And by the way, I have heard from people in Israel, they believe there are less than 20 hostages still alive, that perhaps 100 of them are dead. And if that's true, and if Hamas knows it, but has been negotiating these past months on the basis of 40 coming out, with more possibly later, and Hamas itself saying they can only find 27, Hamas may have been conducting a deception operation to build up pressure on Iran, knowing full well
pressure on Israel.
It could never meet the diplomatic goals of the administration. So deterrence failed 320 times last night against Israel. if Iran doesn't feel the pain, I think it's only going to get worse for Israel.
Former President Trump last night at a rally in Pennsylvania, Schnecksville, said that none of this would have happened if he had been president. Take a listen to what he said.
The people of Israel, they're under attack right now. That's because we show great weakness. This would not happen. The weakness that we've shown is unbelievable, and it would not have happened if we were in office.
What are your thoughts on that?
I just think Trump is delusional on this point. It's a point that nobody can refute or confirm one way or the other. He doesn't have any idea what to do in the Middle East in this situation. Remember when he threatened fire and fury against North Korea? Within a year, he had fallen in love with Kim Jong-un. So he's not qualified to be president. I think people often ask me, well, if you don't think Trump is qualified to be president, why not vote for Biden? Look at Biden's actions in the past 24 hours, trying to persuade Israel not to respond. This is a measure of two candidates, neither one of whom is qualified, at a point of enormous threat, not just to Israel's national security. Let's be clear, what's happening in the Middle East is a threat to American national security, and we should be standing at Israel's side to deal with the threat of Iran.
All right, former Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much for your views. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.